Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, how are you doing, sir?
Feeling good, feeling great, happy to be here, excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Dunker Nation, let's ride. Nekias. Hold, please. YouTubers, hi. Hello. I want to shout out the cutters and the roamers out there. Smash
The
that.
cutters and the
Yeah,
roamers.
you see what we're on. Smash that like button. Comment below. We got a special episode for you, so stay tuned. Subscribe. What are the other things I'm contractually obligated to say?
Contractually? That's a wild please support us, help us pay our bills, etc. But no, we're here to have some fun on this episode. We're going to go themed. We're going to break away from the usual format of teams that impressed, etc., etc. I think every team's played over 20 games at this point of the year, so about a quarter of the way through. So we want to do our first award check-in of the year. That should be fun. I certainly got a headache when parsing through, putting players different places, getting notes, getting my arguments together, all that good stuff. So I hope you enjoy. I'm ready for Steve to both yell at me and also laugh at me with some of my choices. But we're going to have some fun. Before we dig in, just a quick note that we record on Monday afternoon. So all stats referenced, they're not going to include the Monday night slate of games. We'll throw that caveat out there early. But let's dig into some news items first and then get into these awards. On the NBA side, on a somber note, the Cavs are going to be without Darius Garland, who suffered a fractured jaw. He's out at least 4 weeks. And Evan Mobley, who had knee surgery, and he's expected to be out at least 6 to 8 weeks. Very obviously, that stinks for both players involved. They're both very talented, but injuries stink overall, so hope the recovery is fine. For Cleveland, though, this just compounds a very confusing season for them, in which they've never really had their core together for an extended stretch of time. They've been kind of middling in the East record-wise. You feel like one side of the ball gets right, what's going on the other side, and vice versa. And now you are without your starting point guard and without your most important young player in Evan Mobley for an extended stretch. Very quickly on the stat note, the Cavs have been outscored by 18 points in the 276 minutes that they've played without Garland and Evan Mobley on the floor. That sample obviously going to grow. We will see if they're able to balance that out or if things continue to go downward. But before I go any further, Steve, the level of surprise you had when that news dropped, or just your general thoughts on the Cavs moving forward?
It was very surprising. I felt like it dropped back to back, or at least I saw it back to back, and I was like, whoa, that is a lot. I am so sorry, Cleveland. A huge blow for Cleveland. Obviously, you hope that Garland and Mobley are going to be all right. The injury bug just will not leave them alone, Nekias. And it's wild. I feel like all season during this pod, we've just been doing a little temperature check on Cleveland. Hey, is Cleveland okay? Well, hey, what do we do with Cleveland? Where do we put them? And the answer being, hey, there's no Evan Mobley and no Darius Garland for the foreseeable future is tough, but puts a lot of pressure on them to figure some things out on the fly. You mentioned it, but only 11 games of their starting lineup of Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, 6-5 with them in as starters. They had won 4 of the last 6 that unit had played. So it kind of felt like, hey, a little bit of momentum, and now it's gone. The toughest part for me is this is year 2 with Donovan Mitchell. And so last year had success, went to the playoffs, found out what you might need to add. You kind of added it with Max Strus and George Niang, and you felt like you had a balance, you had more shooting. And now you don't really know what the ceiling of that unit is to a degree. And so you're sitting at 23rd in offensive rating, despite, feeling like you have more pace and more tempo and more shooting. 9th in defensive rating, though. You're 24th in assists, and you now lose Darius Garland. You're 9th in opponents' points in the paint, and you now lose Evan Mobley. That's kind of tough. It's a key stretch for them. They're at 8, half game behind the Knicks for 6, a game behind the Heat for 5, so opportunities there, and the Cavs have been here before. I guess my question is, which way do they go? Obviously, they started Mitchell, Strus, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, and Jared Allen. Can you keep your principles? Is this a chance to slow the turnovers down to a degree and work to recommit defensively and find your ethos that way? Hey, we have to get stops. We have to move the ball. Do you sacrifice what you've been working for, or do you just use different players in different spots? Isaac Okoro has improved as a shooter. Dean Wade obviously can space the floor. You still have Niang off the bench. If you're going to throw Sam Merrill out there, then you can still get what you want. And you're probably going to have to use more movement to generate offense without Darius Garland. Does Jared Allen benefit from being the 5 and being a hub and being a roller and having to be aggressive offensively? Do we just get the full Donovan Mitchell experience where we've seen before where Garland's out and Donovan Mitchell explodes and it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. He's pretty good. So the ceiling may feel lower, but I do think they can keep some of their same principles.
Yeah, and just to quickly bounce off of that, I would say, like, obviously you lose Mobley, you lose Garland, that's going to stink. I will say you mentioned the defense still being very good despite lineup stuff being in flux. I think replacing Darius Garland with Isaac Okoro may help that. And so if you do now just have to lean on, we have to get stops and play out of transition. We have to make this more of a half-court game since we don't have Darius Garland to supercharge things. I think having Isaac Okoro is going to help that. You get more size in the backcourt. You just get more aptitude there. It makes it a little bit easier for you to, have that foundation of Okoro and also Allen on the floor together. You still have a level of size with Dean Wade sliding in at the 4. And so you're not completely losing the essence of who you are. So, I think they can lean on that defense to kind of keep things chugging in that regard. My question about Donovan Mitchell, like you also mentioned, like he can just take on higher usage and explode. And I would imagine he's going to try to take that on. My thing is, since this is year 2, and now we're going to be entering an offseason, this is looking further ahead, but we're entering an offseason where there's going to be a contract decision to be made with Donovan Mitchell. You are extension eligible. We would like to keep you long term. Will you take all of this money? How does this season impact things for Donovan Mitchell? Does he take this in as, well, this stinks, we never got off the ground, I really want to try with this group next year? Or is he more like fast forwarding things? Like, okay, this is 2 years, first round exit, and then whatever the season ends up being because we missed a month or 2 months of two of our best guys. And now I'm up for the biggest contract of my life. Do I want to commit here? And depending on where he goes with that, I think Cleveland is in for a very interesting offseason from there. So that's in the back of my head. But short term, I do think the defense can hold up enough. We'll have to see how kind the schedule is going to be to them. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
See, the tricky part is I don't think you can tap that button, but because of the player option element and the bag element, you can't go full Denver where it's like, nope, we trust what this is going to be.
Yeah.
We can add pieces so when it's back, we're good to go. And so Cleveland's kind of caught in between. I think you got to try and win as many games as you can, be as good as you can, and hopefully they can come back and you can try and make a run of it and have some answers. But that's probably going to be the biggest part that they're missing is, okay, we have this decision to make. We still don't know how good this all can be. And we did a lot to make this happen. And it's been successful. They won 50 games last year. But what do you do? Because where do you pivot to? So I think it's more we got to win now. We got to stack some wins.
So we'll see how they approach the trade deadline, not with Mitchell, but just adding more talent, even if it's just a holdover while they're waiting on guys to recover. It's going to be an interesting stretch for Cleveland indeed. Very quickly on the news front before we get into some award stuff. Bradley Beal suffered an ankle injury. He's going to be out a few weeks per Shams Charania of The Athletic. We just will not get to see this big 3 in Phoenix anytime soon, it would appear, which stinks. To this point of the year, they have played 24 minutes together. And they have outscored opponents by 15 points in that time. They have a 138 offensive rating in that time. So in the literal half of basketball in total minutes that we've seen, they've set the Nets on fire. We just won't get to see it get well soon. Bradley, the Sixers and Daryl Morey.
Before you get to the Sixers, I have Beal thoughts. Number one, really unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate. I would like for him to become Bradley Heel because this is tough. And it feels like he has been working to come back from injury after injury after injury. I know mentally that has to take a toll. So first off, number one, hope he's good. Hope he can get through this. And especially you get into this scenario, you see the potential of this trio, this Phoenix team, and boom, you're out the first 6 games. You play 3, you're out another 12. You play 3, and then you're right back out. He's played 3 games in November and 3 games in December. And for me, it's tough because you literally see the potential of what this Suns team could be. First play of the game against the Knicks, they run flex, which is hilarious that offense is never going away. Just salute to flex offense for surviving all the evolution of basketball. Devin Booker slipping off the screen on Bradley Beal and flying off Kevin Durant. That's fun. Then you get a dribble handoff for Bradley Beal with the left corner empty and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker just standing on the right side. And it worked. And you got a Devin Booker post up with Bradley Beal 1 pass away and Kevin Durant 2 passes away. So good luck if you would like to show help. The Knicks obviously declined. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for the Suns. They're 11-8 without him, but they're just going to have to keep trucking along. And the goal has to be to get him to 100%. Hopefully you can keep finding your way offensively with your concepts. Another opportunity to try and get this defense to a level that you feel comfortable with. That won't have Jalen Brunson doing what he just did. But yeah, tough sledding for the Suns. Continue with Daryl Morey. My apologies.
Yeah, okay. Got you. Tough sledding for the Suns. I'll just quickly note, like, it's helpful that the Suns have been getting some good things from some of these reserve wings and reserve guards. Like, Grayson Allen's knocked down a bunch of shots, had some fun play from Nasir Little as of late, so they do have pieces that can fill in, but obviously neither of those guys are Bradley Beal. Hope we're able to see the full unit at some point. Sixers and Daryl Morey agreeing to a contract extension through the 2027-28 year, and that year is important because it aligns with the end of Nick Nurse's contract, so getting the brain trust together makes sense. Daryl Morey, after doing the James Harden trade, Philly's in a pretty solid spot. I think it's fair to say that. Pretty important offseason coming up with all the cap space they're still going to have. So we'll see how that transpired, but it makes sense that they would want to align things in the front office. Did you have Philly thoughts?
I mean, just it's neat that he gets to stay on board with the next version of the Sixers. With Embiid, with this version of Tyrese Maxey, with the cap space, has the opportunity to reshape it. And so we'll see what he's able to bring to the table. Obviously, he brought Nick Nurse in. Things are looking up in Philly. So I guess it's cross your fingers, a version of stability.
Yeah, which they've needed for a good little bit. So we will see if he's able to provide it. And then 2 more. The Grizzlies are, as we talked about in the last pod, Ja Morant slated to come back, I guess, tomorrow or today by the time you watch or listen to this. But slated to come back on Tuesday against the Pelicans. Because they signed Bismack Biyombo earlier with an exemption with Ja being out, they would have had to have waived or traded a player to bring Ja back and to keep Bismack. And it looks like the player that's going to be on the outs is Kenneth Lofton Jr. So he is going to be a free agent. We'll just quickly note, fun fact for last year, last game of the season, put up 42 and 14 in his lone start. Give him the ball, let him get downhill. It's fun. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be a career 40 and 10 guy, but he does have some talent. He is an intriguing player. Any fit for Kenneth Lofton? Any team you'd like to see take a flyer on him?
I hope someone does. Like, this is the tough part about the business. If you look at Memphis, they've been injury riddled all year, and Lofton's averaged 6 minutes a game, played 15 times. And you look at the scenario where Xavier Tillman picked up 2 back-to-back DNPs. So Bismack came and said, "Hey, I would like to play."
I'm the captain now. Yeah.
That's a good shot. So I don't have a particular one, but I would like to see him continue to play basketball because he can hoop.
I think it's got to be a team like Boston. I don't think have the roster spot for it, but like Boston will be a fun team to try out. Because I think the issue with Kenny is that you have to find a position or a scheme for him defensively. And he hasn't really been able to find that. And he doesn't space the floor at a level to where you're comfortable playing him alongside someone yet. And so it's a weird in-between with him right now, in spite of like what he can do on the block, what he can do as a driver, some of the playmaking flashes as he gets downhill. Like, he's a talented guy. It's just like finding the fit is going to be interesting. Like, Boston was the first team that came to mind for me. But
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Miami or OKC?
I see. Ooh. Probably Miami.
There we go.
That would certainly track. Speaking of players that have not ended up in Miami, Draymond Green, a second-round pick that didn't end up in Miami. Anyway, quick Draymond Green update. Per Shams, he's expected to be out at least 3 weeks as he begins his counseling process. So Still not a specific Draymond out for X amount of games, but we at least have a broad timeline of how long he's expected to be out. So we will obviously provide updates as necessary on that front. Okay. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I came up with another team for Kenneth Lofton.
Okay.
The Washington Wizards. I would just like to see him and Danilo Gallinari posting people up. Continue.
Okay, yeah, I'll let you have that one. Let's get into some awards talk, buddy. When I tell you this had me in a headlock going through all of these, and then also like as someone that has like a self-imposed like games played thing, now actually trying to factor in the games played thing, and me going the extra step of saying, okay, who's on track to meet this right now, versus just picking players. Led to some tough decisions, led to some interesting decisions. I'm excited to talk through them. Also a little bit terrified. We're going to have some fun, though. Let's start with the MVP. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
I'm going to go first, bud. And I'll be honest,
what you got?
I was a little curious, a little concerned about doing the award check-in this early, but it's always a fun exercise. And then I started thinking about the MVP, and I remembered why I'm happy we're doing it now. This MVP race should be stacked. It should be fun. We should be able to discuss things. These players are playing at a really high level. If people actually want to have it, there's a lot of fun that can be had. That's the route I want to take. And I am big on having guys in the conversation early, and that way we can shift as the season goes on. It's not easy this early, but again, I state, make a case for whoever you believe to be the MVP. You do not have to downgrade any other player to make a case for who you think is the MVP. Basketball is subjective, so some people are going to value winning. Some people are going to value stats. Some people are going to value this. Some people are going to value that. Just let it be. I made a joke over the weekend, Nekias.
Okay.
It'd be funny if Redacted were to win the MVP because folks just decide to opt out of the Embiid-Jokic debate. And lost in that was the fact that a whole lot of people are playing well, while Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic are still playing very well. So that was the point. So let's get that right there. I'm going to start with Joel Embiid, Nekias.
Okay.
He got even better. Leading the league in scoring, a career-high 34.2 points a night, 11.7 rebounds, a career-high 6 assists, 1.9 blocks, 1.1 steals, shooting 53.4% a night on 21 shot attempts. Nekias, last 10 games for Joel Embiid, 36.9 points on 56.7% shooting, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 2.3 blocks, 1.3 steals. This month, he's averaging 40 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, a steal and a half, shooting 61.9% from the field on 23.2 field goal attempts. He's got 30 points and 10 rebounds in 10 straight games, Nekias. He passed Wilt Chamberlain's Sixer franchise record for the longest streak of 30-10 games. It's the longest streak we've seen since Shaq did it 11 straight times in 2001 when you were -2.
Oh. All right. See what's going on here.
He scored 30 or more in all 6 games of the month of December, 9 out of 13 times in November. He did 2 out of 3 games in October. That means 17 of the last 22 times we've seen this man play, he's dropped 30. And you know what the best part is? He's putting these numbers up while literally, quite literally, not playing in the fourth quarter 9 times.
Yeah. It's like a genuine per 36 because he's like, it's crazy what he's been able to put together. I'm so glad you brought up, like, I'm gonna let you go as well. But like, I'm so glad you brought that up because in my notes I had 11 straight games of 30 plus. He's only had 5 games under 30 and 0 under 20, which is just, I feel like I dropped an Embiid stat like that last year when we were doing this discussion, which just speaks to the level of consistency that he's exhibiting right now. But continue.
Well, no, and that's a level of consistency for a team that traded James Harden and is the 3 seed. A half game out of 2. Salute to him. You know who else need to salute? Luka. Luka Doncic is going crazy. Career high 32.7 points, career high 9.1 assists, adding 8.3 rebounds, getting up 10 threes a night and knocking down a career high 37.9%. Nekias, as we record this, Luka has put up a 40-point triple-double twice in the last 6 games. Guys, the league has been tracking play-by-play since 96, 97. I know you were like -10 then. Since then, there's only one person to have a 25-point triple-double and a half, and that's Luka. He did it literally less than 2 weeks ago. The amount of plays that he creates, the buckets that he gets, the pressure he puts on defenses. Dallas is the 3 seed in the West right now, a half game behind OKC. And speaking of OKC, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is taking names, folks.
And taking the ball from you.
Yes. Last year, he averaged 31 and 5 assists on a career best 51% shooting. And Nekias, I have some bad news for you. I know you're not going to like this. It appears the league has caught up to him, and they figured him out because he's averaging 30.7 points a game with a career high 6.4 assists, a career high 54.2% shooting, and a career high 2.7 steals a night. He leads the league in steals, by the way. Also, secondarily, no player in NBA history has averaged 30 points on 54% shooting with 2.5 steals in a regular season. The thing I want to point to, it's not just the drives. It's not just the driving angles, not straight line drives and the finishing, but the shooting. It's more than just a counter. He gets to his spots and he lets it go. Shooting 54.2% on pull-up twos, 7.5 attempts a night. Last year, that was 48.8%. He leads,
which is still good.
He leads the league in drives per game at 22.4. He leads the league in points off drives per game with 16.2. He's shooting 68% in the restricted area. To put that in context, Joel Embiid's at 67.9. And going back to the mid-range improvement, buddy, 51.4% according to the tracking data for mid-range, 4.7 attempts, 10th most attempts. In the top 10, the next highest shooter is Brandon Ingram at 46.9. That's a significant gap. He was at 42% last year, bud.
That is difficult to do. That is really difficult to do.
You know what else is difficult to do? Be the guy who has the 2 highest scoring games in the NBA. You know who that is, Nekias?
Would that be Giannis?
Giannis Antetokounmpo, who scored 65 points against the Pacers and 54 points against the Pacers. Career high 31.4 points a night. Career high 61.8% shooting. Another reminder, no player in NBA history has averaged 30 a night on 60% shooting. That just pointing that out there. I know there's a lot of hashtag luggage talk. But you know,
we're just never gonna gotta lose the shackles of the bag talk when it comes to Giannis.
Man shooting 78.9% in the restricted area. Now that probably is a stat that would help the luggage folk, but it's still very impressive. And a lot of talk about the Bucks. They're the 2 seed through it all, and Giannis has been crushing it. What say you? I've spoken a lot because I'm fired up.
I'm with you. Assuming that was your order, at least that's your top 4. I think you still have to give your 5th. I am with you on Embiid number 1. He's also number 1 on my list. I also have Giannis 4. And I also have Shai 3. We do have some disagreement at 2, and I would assume 5.
Wait, you have Shai 3?
I have Shai 3.
This is one of the largest upsets in Dunker Spot podcast history. But I'm listening. Where'd you put the Joker?
I have Jokic at 2. Which, it says a lot about how good he is when, you know, within the last, 2 or 3 weeks, he's had literally the 2 worst shooting performances of his career. And he's still above league average in efficiency. Overall, he's still putting up 27, 12, and nearly 10 assists a game. He's only had Jamal Murray for half of his games to this point of the season. The Nuggets continue to blitz teams with Jokic on the floor and fall apart when he's not on the floor. All that is still there. The Nuggets have been around a top 10 defense all year long, and that is somehow going under the radar in the midst of all the Jokic defense talk last year and the year before that and the year before that, et cetera, et cetera. He's soundly done his job. If we can't take it out. I think the ejections really hurt the box score numbers and also hurt the impact numbers. And even with that, he's still like top 3 to top 5 and just about everything that you want to cite on the advanced stat front if you care about that portion of the program. Do you know what he would be averaging just box score wise if the Detroit game and the Chicago game just didn't happen?
What would it be?
Well, Steve, you'd be averaging 29, 13, and 10.
That's a little different.
If those games didn't happen. And like 27, 12, and essentially 10 is 9.5 assists. Like that's enough to be insane from the center spot. It'd be even better if those games just didn't happen. And like even in the Chicago game and the Detroit game, like he was on triple-double watch in the first half of both of those before he yelled at the ref at Detroit and Buddy wasn't happening. And I'm still trying to figure out what happened to Chicago and why that was such a quick hook on Serbian Heritage Night, no less. But that's neither here nor there. Jokic has continued to be insane offensively. He is an offense unto himself. The box score numbers speak for himself. Even with him being uncharacteristically inefficient by his standard, he's still more efficient than like 85, 90% of the league with insane usage while missing Jamal Murray for a large chunk of it. The on-off stuff is still in his favor. With this dip, if you care about like EPM or whatever, like he's still very much among the top of the league in that. And this is with 2 games basically being punted and another 2 where he just couldn't make floaters. It's hard for me to push Jokic that far down with that kind of case so far.
Understood. So Jokic is 2 for you.
Mm-hmm.
He's 5 for me. Okay. It's only because of 1, a whole lot of people are playing very well. 2, it's early, so this could absolutely be a Cupid shuffle scenario.
Yeah.
And 3, I'm actually going to ask you.
Okay.
Is this just not the year for the hashtag winning narrative? Because I feel bad for Jason Tatum. He technically is the best player on the best team in the league. And he is, one of 4 players to average 25, 8, and 4 for each of the last 3 seasons. We named Embiid, Luka, and Giannis. We did not name Tatum. Is this a year where, hey, this is fantastic. You've done everything. They have also done things.
Just a thumbs up guy. I bet you don't know him averaging 28, 8, and 4 on the best team in the East. But it is a bit unfortunate for Tatum within that context because everyone else has been insane. This hasn't felt like a typical Tatum year. Like you've seen some areas in which it's been better. Like I feel like the drives are as good as they've ever been for Jason Tatum. The defense has been solid. It hasn't been like all defense level like it was a couple of years ago. And it hasn't been like sub-elite like it was for large portions of last year. I feel like it's been solid for Jason Tatum, in my watching anyway. And then on the other end, playmaking's been fine. Like it hasn't been... I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this because I don't want to like denigrate Jason Tatum at all. I think he's still been one of the best players in the league. He's on one of my all NBA teams. I spoiled that one early. So like it's not that. But like compared to like what Embiid's doing, what Jokic is doing, it hasn't hit that way. And then I'm just continuing to keep an eye on like where the pull up for Jason Tatum lands because that portion has been a pretty big drain on the efficiency if you care about that part. And so like I feel like at a basic level, there are more things to nitpick with his case than it is with like the guys that are ahead of him.
Could it just also be a case that Boston's very, very good? And so he may not be getting the credit for Boston being very, very good because that lineup is very, very, very good. And so it's easy to kind of forget, hey, that guy does a lot for that lineup as far as creating offense and making shots. Could it be that at all?
I think it can be, yeah. Like, I don't know, I guess with the context improving for him, like, I guess you would want, like, a quote-unquote louder year than what he's had. I don't know, like, something just kind of feels off, and it could just be the Boston games that I've been watching. but it doesn't feel like on a possession by possession basis it hasn't been the Tatum from last year for me. And so like it just his cases hasn't hit the way that it did last year. And even then I had him 4 or 5.
He's very solidly 6 for me. I had a brief moment of Tatum or Jokic, which I'm sure you would not have appreciated. But if anyone slides, he's right in there. Like it's not
he's right
it's
there.
Not a second thought.
So,
I want to make sure I say that. So wait, then who was your 5?
5 was Luka for me.
Ew.
Which again, he's been very good. Like I think the one thing that's kind of put me in a loop for Luka as I get into, obviously you watch all these guys, but like once you dig into, okay, what are the numbers saying? What is some of the advanced stuff saying? What is the on-off stuff? Normally the MVP candidates are going to have one, if not both, of when this guy's on the floor, they are blitzing teams. Or when they're off the floor, their team is getting pummeled. It's at least one of the two. And so like you look at someone like Jason Tatum, or even someone like Joel Embiid, that'll be, as we both have him number 1. The Sixers are killing teams with Embiid on the floor. And like they're still winning the minutes when he's off because Tyrese Maxey has also been awesome. But it's very clear Joel Embiid is driving this, and they are dominant when he's on. And with Luka, it's been weird all year on that front. To where, just looked it up as I was getting notes together earlier, a plus 1.8 net rating with him on, which is fine, but that's not super high level. A plus 5.3 with him off. That's weird for me.
Because looking at the Kyrie, because said that math is not mathing.
I'm just like, that seems odd. And like I'm trying to juxtapose that with the conversations we've had about Luka and the Mavericks. We did a full Luka film breakdown on the channel about how awesome he's been. And I'm trying to like balance that part with 32, 8, and 9 or whatever it is, and the 3-point shooting getting better, and the defensive effort being much better, and the recent load that he's had to carry as the Mavericks have dealt with a whole bunch of injuries. And it's also just like, okay, what is this split then? To where you have been this insane, but they've kind of been quote unquote treading water compared to the other MVP candidates, obviously. But like you're kind of treading water with Luka on, and the bench is just winning. The Kyrie without Luka minutes are just good. And so like for me, comparing that to the Thunder just falling off a cliff without Shea, and they also have been better with Shea on than with Luka on with Dallas. Same thing. I just mentioned the Jokic numbers. I just talked about the Embiid numbers. Giannis has the same thing. And even the Giannis minutes without Dame are better than Luka, just period. If we're splitting hairs anywhere, like that's probably where it comes in for me. And that's where Luka's at 5. But he's been incredible.
Oh, no doubt. No need to a disclaimer. All these guys are very, 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 very good. And everyone's going to have their different tiebreakers. I was just curious. Also, can I be respectfully messy for a second before you release the Duncan cut of the short list? I was going to say, did you want to play a game? But I know you got lists, so I don't want to throw you off.
Okay.
Are we just going to have a dual Jokic and Embiid debate and a Luka Shea debate? Is that just the future?
Ooh. With Giannis raising his hand?
Yeah.
Like, y'all know I'm still 30, 10, and 5, right? Like, that might be the bit. I guess Luka, Shea, Tatum would probably just be like the trifecta.
Got you.
There with like the younger stars coming up, which, Shea quietly older than both Luka and Tatum, but.
So it's just going to be nasty.
Feels like the bit right now.
It's going to be nasty all around. I have another question before you release the Duncan cut of the MVP candidates. Can Minnesota get one? Or is it just, hey, I'm afraid I've got some bad news?
It feels more, I'm afraid I got some bad news. I think Ant's been very good until like just the on-off split portion of the program. Like Ant is up there with these top MVP candidates. I don't feel like he's been like, has Ant been better than Tatum to you? Before even getting into like advanced numbers and all the good stuff, just from when you've watched him, like has Ant felt better than Tatum than you?
Ant's felt very good this year, but I probably wouldn't put him above Tatum.
Yeah, like he feels like towards the top of like I guess, the second tier of candidates as I get into like my short list and stuff.
Here we go. Flow into it, big dog.
All right, let's get into it. Okay, before I get into the short list, let me note again, there's a games played minimum, like league wide. You got to play at least 65. And so for me, I was like, okay, let me see who's on track for this. So found the total games that's been played in the league, found the average. So basically 79% of games, which is that 65 out of 82 marker, you got to play at least 20 right now for me. And so that immediately eliminates De'Aaron Fox and Devin Booker. And so they won't make my All-NBA teams right now just because of that. Only because of that. Because they have not played it. They haven't met that 20-game threshold yet through like 23, 24 games, whatever the case may be. So I'll throw that disclaimer out there as we get to the rest of the awards. So 20 games played is what it needs for my list. But as for the short list, I already mentioned Luka. Well, Luka's 5. I already mentioned Jason Tatum. Also on the list, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Tyrese Halliburton. We just talked about Anthony Edwards. Creeping up the list with his recent play / shutting me up. Kawhi Leonard. Playing very well on both ends of the floor. If you want to hear more Clippers thoughts, listen to the Old Man, the Three Things with JJ. Not going to say all of that again over here. Time constraints, etc. But Kawhi Leonard also creeping up the list. So I guess that would be the short list. And again, Devin Booker, De'Aaron Fox are just out because of games played for me.
Okay. What would need to happen for Donovan Mitchell or Steph Curry to be considered by you?
For Mitchell, like the playmaking portion is going to be tough just because the talent's missing. But like a bump in that plus Cleveland winning games. And for Golden State, it is just win games.
Okay.
Because Steph has also been wildly, I guess last night notwithstanding, where the 3-point streak was dropped or was ended because he didn't make one. But I think it's just going to be win for Steph. And it's going to be win plus playmaking jump for Donovan Mitchell.
Okay. I like it.
Did you have any other? Yeah. Did you have any other shout outs?
No, we pretty much were aligned on that list. I think it's interesting. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be some pushes and pulls. And then once you really get close to it and the math starts kicking in a little bit, that might change it a lot. So that's why I'm like, hey, maybe we should just widen the conversation out a little bit to start.
Yeah, and then shrink it down.
Because, hey, 1 through 1, 2, and 4 just might not be qualified. And now what you going to do?
Yeah, it gets kind of hazy. Also, just one more quick thing on Joel Embiid. Just note, the Sixers, as of recording, sliding a little bit past the Pacers for the best offense in the league and thus the best offense in NBA history. Embiid also anchoring a top 5 defense right now. So just two-way impact is there. Anyway, let's get into all NBA. I'll go quickly through mine. My first team, we have Shea, we have Luka. Oh, the all NBA teams and all defensive teams and all rookie teams, they're all positionless. It's just in case you weren't aware. But anyway, first team, we have Shea, Luka, Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic. Should come as no surprise. Second team, have Halliburton, Tatum, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Anthony Davis on my second team. Third team, I have Steph, I have Tyrese Maxey, I have Anthony Edwards, I have Kawhi Leonard, I have Rudy Gobert.
Interesting. Now, here's the thing. Positionless is going to be very, very fun. I was going to talk about it once we got into defenses, but I am intrigued to see what the shift is going to be. Who's going to get squeezed? Who's going to get more of an opportunity? On paper, you probably think more guards are going to make it just because there's more of an ability to throw more guards in there. Does a center crack the rotation? Does this end the Rudy Gobert third team candidacy? That's not, no disrespect, just literally like, I don't have to go to center. Like I'm not going to. So I'm intrigued by that part. First team is my 5 MVP candidates: Joel Embiid, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka, Giannis, and Nikola Jokic. Second team: Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox for me, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Tyrese Halliburton. Third team: Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
I had a very tough time with old Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Damian Lillard, Julius Randle.
Yes.
Jimmy Butler floated in my head for a second. Look, that's where I'm going to need some help.
Yeah, it's going to get nasty. Like, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Devin Booker, De'Aaron Fox, both injury/games played casualties for my list right now. Bam Adebayo also on the injury list. Like, I think he really would have been pushing for an All-NBA team. Slated to come back, again, recording on a Monday, so slated to come back tonight. So very excited about that. But again, he's on the injury list for me, which means once we get into Depoy and all defense, he also won't be there, even though I felt like when he was playing, he might have just been Depoy for me. At the very least, he's in that top 3 discussion. But I was going to miss out. LaMelo and Kyrie also just noted they haven't met the games played threshold. I'm not sure how serious they would have considered either of those for like an All-NBA third team selection, but they were also eliminated. My short list, I had Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell. Trae Young was on my short list as the efficiency started to bounce back. You mentioned Dame. He's a little bit further down my list, but also on the list. Jalen Brunson's a good shout. Some names that you didn't mention that I have on my short list: Chet Holmgren, Alperen Şengün, Scotty Barnes. I think all 3 of those young dudes have been hooping. Just wanted to throw their names out there. The Scotty with the defensive improvement. Also, the 3-point shot seems to be approaching real, but we'll keep an eye on it. Şengün, more of the offense being ran through him, defensive improvements as well, but like the offense has really popped. He's been one of the most efficient post-up threats in the league. Playmaking's popped as well. Chet, 2-way impact, the shooting, the rim running, what he's doing defensively. We'll talk a little bit more about him as we get into the defense conversation. But at least guys in consideration for me, even though they ultimately didn't make the team for me.
Okay.
Let's move into the defense then, unless you had any more shout-outs that came to mind.
Nah, we're good.
Okay, let's flow into the defense. I had a question for you.
What you got?
As I was like thinking about the way that I think about these awards, I also should have said at the top, like, I don't have an official vote. I just think about this stuff a lot. But like, I think about how I like parse through MVP versus All NBA, and like how my criteria slightly differs when it comes to like win-loss or just win percentage. I factor in winning more with MVP discussions than I do with All NBA stuff. I feel like the value is going to improve the winning, where I view All NBA as more, it's closer to who have been the best players versus who have been the most valuable players in the league. And so like there's a lot of overlap, obviously. Like the best players tend to be the most valuable and are up there. But like it's different enough to where I can have some different options down the line. Like in our WNBA discussions where I had like Neko Gumake and Nafisa Collier in different spots on MVP versus All W, for example. So my question for you is, as you get into Defensive Player of the Year and the all defense teams, especially with the all defense teams being positionless now, does any of your criteria change among those 2 awards? Or are you pretty consistent among those 2?
I try to be as consistent as I can be. Again, I am a human being. I also do not have a vote. But for me, I just think about it this way. How good is your defense? And how important are you to how good your defense is?
Mm-hmm.
And how much of that defense is needed for your team to succeed. Like, you may be a great defensive talent, but if your team's defense is only so good or it's not equating to a certain level of victories, you're going to have to be very, very, very loud for me to consider boosting you up there. You know, like you look at Rudy Gobert this year. He's playing well defensively. He's got some of the regular counting stats. I know he's got a whole lot of the advanced mathematics. And his team is number 1 in the West and number 1 defensive rating. Hey, that case is pretty strong. So you can't ignore that. But then again, it's subjective. So what's going to be your tiebreaker? You know, are you elite at one thing? Is it versatility? You know, does your team's defense fall off when you're not around? Are you the anchor for the defense? Like last year, I had Brooke almost all year long, I feel like. And while, yes, Drew was there, and I was heavy on Drew being a key piece of that, that defense wouldn't have worked if Brooke wasn't so locked in with his timing and his positioning and his rim protection and his blocks and his contests. And because that defense was so good, and you saw how important he was to that, and how much Milwaukee needed that defense to have that level of success, that's where it kind of tilted for me to a degree. Gotcha. All defense is more of an opportunity to just highlight people that are playing defense at a top level. They may not have some totality to their case. You know, it's a good plate. It's just missing something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got you. Like, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because as I was trying to get these teams together, I'm just like, you know, it goes back to, I guess, the conversation we had once it was announced that the things were going to change. More so on the W side, because that was like an official press release last year. But the immediate conversation became, okay, what happens to these guards then? Because it's going to be a lot easier for voters to see block, steal, rebound numbers for some of these bigs versus the quote unquote quieter stuff box score wise that some of the guards may have to do. And so, like, bouncing off of that, and again, I may just be galaxy braining this. But as I was approaching the all defense teams, like I found myself kind of in a similar loop with MVP and all NBA or all WNBA in that case, where it's just like, okay, maybe the winning means a little bit more to provide that quote unquote value in the MVP discussion. But just how good are you at your job is more of the function for like the all NBA or all W teams. And so I kind of went into this like, okay, maybe I want to treat the all defensive teams in that way since they're positionless. So where Depoy, as I get into, obviously you got to watch the tape. That's number one, especially with the defensive boards. Obviously you watch the tape. You need to know what these players are asked to do, what the overall scheme is, how everyone else impacts what that guy's trying to do, et cetera, et cetera. I do think like the on-off and some of the impact metrics, they naturally skew towards bigs because they are protecting the most important area of the court, at least statistically. And so like your eighth best defensive big will just have a higher share or have a higher split or, a higher number there than like the second best defensive guard. And like, I don't think that's particularly fair, but it's understandable. And so for all defense, I kind of went into it like, okay, this may be where I prioritize just how well are you doing your job more. And that's where I end up with more guards on my all defense team than versus like the defensive player of the year awards for me. The top three were bigs for me. But as we got into all defense, you will see I have guards on those teams. I have more guards, more perimeter guys on the second team. So I didn't know if that was like crazy or me overthinking it or what the case may be. But like that's kind of how I want to approach it.
It's not crazy. It's just it's a function of positionless voting. We're going to see which way it shifts. I think the thing is what bigs do defensively is just, as you stated, inherently louder for people than what guards do, as far as guards having to pressure the ball, navigate, help, recover, close out, communicate, make multiple efforts. There aren't necessarily a ton of stats for those. And even some of the stats that they have, like deflections, fun stat, right?
Mm-hmm.
James Harden has as many deflections as Derek White. I'm certain one of those players you are about to mention, and one of them you will not.
That's pretty true.
So,
that's pretty true.
You can viscerally see, okay, pick and roll, protecting the paint, protecting the rim, blocking shots. So I just think it's going to be a fun way to kind of discuss and hopefully evolve what you look for in a great defender. So I'm intrigued to see what your list is like as well, because honestly, it just comes down to impact for me with all defense. Are you impacting your team? Are you causing hell for whoever you're guarding? Are you someone that, hey, if you're someone that teams literally just want to put on the strong side, that adds value to me. Like, we don't want you involved. You stay over there. Interesting. But there's no stat for that,
Yeah, I got you. Just wanted to pick your brain a little bit there as we get into these teams. Let's start with Defensive Player of the Year. Again, because they haven't played at least 20 games, no Bam Adebayo, no Evan Mobley for me. But my top three right now, Rudy Gobert 1. I have Anthony Davis 2. If Evan Mobley was healthy, he would be 3. But since he is not, I have Joel Embiid 3.
Wow, back on the Embiid train. Wow.
He's been very good defensively. I mentioned up top, anchoring a top 5 defense. He's been very good in drop this year. Teams do not want to take a lot of shots at the rim when Embiid is on the floor. It's a natural measure of like rim deterrence in general. It's something that you pointed out in your threads, something that's been popping my eye more like, oh, he is doing more things this year.
Yeah.
It's not just a drop. He will creep up. He will hedge. He will trap if necessary late in games. You try to ISO against him, you're not having much fun when you try to clear out against him there. He's just kind of been rock solid defensively this year. And sometimes without having to do all that much, just because teams look at him and say, okay, I'm not challenging that dude. And so Embiid in the third spot for me. Who did you have?
I have Bam as my defensive player of the year. I just think, one, the versatility in which the amount of positions he can guard, the different ways that he can guard, the tasks that he's asked to do by Miami. defensively, the responsibility to anchor that defense, both man and in zone, and what they look like when he is not on the court defensively. Right
That's the
now,
big one.
I got him number 1. Rudy Gobert and Anthony Davis had me in a headlock because I think Anthony Davis has been pretty good defensively this year. I know he's got some loud stats, but I've liked the versatility, protecting the paint, the switchability. He's been very good. It's tough to go against Rudy right now. This very much feels like a Rudy year, by the way, with Minnesota being good and Rudy having this type of season where he looks better in space. He's protecting the paint. He's making multiple efforts, containing penetration. He overall looks better. So I understand his case. So I have Rudy number 2. This is no disrespect to AD. Number 3, I have Herb Jones.
I like it.
He's a menace. He's an absolute menace defensively. And if you watch a Pelicans game and you want to learn about defense, or you want to try and understand defense more, or you want to see, hey, what's the hype? I don't get it. Just watch Herb Jones play defense. Watch the ball pressure, watch the rotations, watch the help defense. You're going to see the blocks. You'll see the steals. I'm sure if you go look it up right now, you'll see it. But he does that every single night for that team. And that, for me, has value. So it's kind of one of those where I could totally understand if AD was 3 or if it was just Bam, Rudy, AD. I would totally get that. I think Herb's been very good.
And to be frank, like, it would be, again, if Bam had met the games played threshold for me, it would just be between Bam and Rudy right now for 1 and 2. I think Bam has been that good. Again, this is strictly you have not played enough, not Bam slipping at all defensively. I love the Herb Jones shout. Very quickly to you mentioning the scheme versatility for Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis top 10 in contested 3-pointers this year. It's a really fun stat.
He's been really good. Like, it's not just the drop. I can mix in the switch. I can get the level. He's been very, very good.
He has been wild. Short list for me on the defensive player of the year front. You mentioned Herb. I have Herb on my list. Also have Chet Holmgren on the list. Couple of more perimeter guys I want to shout out. Jalen Suggs and OG Anunoby. I think the OG season is just going to fly completely under the radar because the Raptors as a whole are just very confusing and not very good. And most of the conversation around OG is going to be who's going to trade for him or if the Raptors are actually going to do it. And I think that's missing the fact that he is still one of the best defenders on the planet and has been one of the best pick and roll defenders on the planet this year and has been one of the best isolation defenders in the league and is still tasked with defending up and down the positional spectrum. Like, he's been wild, and that's going to go quiet. And Jalen Suggs, talked about him at length during the Magic segment that we did a while ago, but he is everywhere defensively. I love watching that dude play. Screen navigation is good. Ball pressure is wild. Off the ball, secondary rim protection will take charges against literally anyone. Just some of the rotations he makes, even if it doesn't end up in a steal, charge, or block. He's just there and impacting things. So I think he's another guy that should be at least in the conversation, even if he doesn't get all the way there to defense player.
Okay.
Let's get into these all defense teams. Speaking of Jalen Suggs, I do have him on my first team. If you care about advanced stats at all, I am pretty big fan of estimated plus minus EPM. So they have split it up in offensive EPM and defense EPM. He's number 1 in the league in that stat. And I will say, like, just EPM in general, well, once you get to the defensive side, like, that feels like one of the ones that actually highlight the guards pretty highly in that stat. Like, Jalen Suggs number 1 this year. I think last year both Alex Caruso and Dennis Smith Jr. were up there. And you know how I felt about both of their screen navigation, and Alex Caruso will guard anyone. And then you go back further, you'll see a lot of guards at the top of that list. So I do like that stat in general. But anyway, Jalen Suggs, Herb Jones, Joel Embiid. Again, I'll probably have Evan Mobley here, but not going to make it with games played. He's going to be out for a while. Anthony Davis and Rudy Gobert is my first team. On my second team, I have the Boston guards. I have Derek White and Drew Holiday. Quick note on Drew Holiday. He's defended the 7th most post-ups in the league. Entering Monday's action, 0.52 points per possession on those trips. You do not score when you try to post up Drew Holiday, and they will toss him on bigs just from the start. It's not just him switching a pick and roll. He'll just get the assignment and hold his own. Alex Caruso on the team for me, OG Anunoby, and I have Chet Holmgren on the second.
Well, it's all good. You got EPM. I got PBM. Prevented buckets, man.
You are not serious.
No, I'm not. First team, Bam Adebayo, Rudy Gobert, Herb Jones, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid. Second team, Drew Holiday, Derek White. Alex Caruso still for me because they make that man guard everyone. Suggs as well for me, and Brook Lopez.
Okay, who once again leads the NBA in contested shots by a wide margin. And the Bucks defense has been much better since the shift to, hey, maybe we should just play drop again.
It's not going to be a Brook year this year. I can already tell just the way people talk about the Bucks defense. It's not going to happen, especially with Rudy playing well too. I feel like that's just going to shift, but that's a different combo for a different day. I had a tough time leaving Chet off, especially after watching that Denver game again. Good night. He did some really good things defensively there.
9 blocks and many more shots challenged.
Yeah. Wemby, I know, but also that man's breaking defense. We can be honest. And then I had Dylan Brooks.
Yes.
I felt bad. I was like, Dylan Brooks has really helped change Houston's defense. And so he probably deserves a lot more credit. So I wanted to give him a shout out here, at least. He's definitely in consideration.
Okay. Got you. Let me dig into my short list first. I had Wemby. I quickly wrote down, I was looking at some cleaning the glass stuff. San Antonio defends like the 13th, or at a rate that would rank 13th in the league in defensive rating with Wemby on the court, and that drops to 30th with him off. In addition to just the blocks per game numbers, also averaging over a steal. He has been legitimately insane defensively. He's had to play the 4 and the 5. Had more of like that off-ball roamer role. He's been playing the 5 more of late. You just can't take shots against him at the rim. It's really funny to watch sometimes. Also just a lot of fun to watch. But Wemby was on the short list for me. Also on the short list for me, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Want to highlight, 5th in defensive EPM, if you care about that. But beyond that, with Jaden McDaniels missing a large chunk of the season to begin with, he took on a lot of those tough perimeter assignments and continued to defend very well. Love how quick his hands are. Very good screen navigator as well. Per second spectrum among a lot of players that have defended at least 200 picks or 200 pick and rolls. He's 6th in points per possession allowed. So if you want to throw another, like a tracking stat on that, it's a little bit better than some of the advanced stuff. That's up there. Shea on the short list. The switchability, the effort continues to be pristine after, a couple of years ago. I was like, hey, man, you can do better than this. What is this? Had a whole conversation on the pod about it. He's been wild. The steals obviously speak for themselves, but also switchable. Fun in the passing lanes off the ball, so that's been good. Kawhi Leonard on the short list. Ivica Zubac also on the short list for me. Lou Dort, if we want to give OKC a little bit more love. If we go to the longer list of people that I thought about, but ultimately didn't make the short list and thus didn't make the actual team, we got Scotty Barnes. Have Giannis and Brook on this list as defense is perked up.
Damn, Brook is deep. What?
Brook is deep, but the slow start really hurts in addition to what some of these other guys have done. Jaren on that longer list. Again, I don't want it to be lost that he's been good defensively. It's not going to be deep boy level. And so we'll see where we're at there. But Jaren was on that longer list. Some guards. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I think what he's been asked to do on the perimeter defensively has flown under the radar this year. Matisse Thybulle, which honestly, he should probably go. If Portland was better, I think he would garner like some legit 6th man of the year consideration for what he's been able to do defensively. And also shooting over 40% from 3, like that has continued from when he joined Portland and shot well. That's still happening, so keep an eye on that. Patrick Williams, as we get lost in, is he improving offensively? Is he aggressive, et cetera, continues to defend multiple positions very well. And then once you get into some of the tracking stuff, the pick and roll defense, the ISO defense, continues to be amongst the best in the league, much like he was last year. So deserves a shot. Aaron Gordon's been good. I had Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. I want to do just a full Houston deep dive to figure out which guard has been most impactful. I think the on-ball chops from Dylan Brooks has been very good. What Fred's been doing on the ball has also been good, but the off-ball value, especially when he's at the nail with what Houston's asking them to do in terms of help, that's been very valuable. A tier below that, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis. Just wanted to shout them out. I feel like they've had some fun defensive seasons. So I will leave it there. Let's get into Rookie of the Year.
Before we get to Rookie of the Year, that was pure dunker spot in its purest form. So I'm going to counter with a free throw for you.
Okay.
So power rank these people making all defense team as far as your level of frustration. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Donovan Mitchell, LeBron James.
Frustration probably would be Yeah, that's probably most frustrated. Mitchell, LeBron, Shea will probably be the top three.
Okay. We'll circle back to that later. Rookie of the year.
Yeah, it's Chet for me right now.
Hmm.
I have Chet, Wemby, and then third spot got interesting for me because I think you can legitimately argue either Jaime Jaquez from Miami or Derek Lively in Dallas. I landed on Jaime with a little bit more on-ball responsibility, but Lively's right there, so very much at the top of my short list. Brandon Miller, Asar Thompson also got some thoughts, but they're a little bit further behind Lively for me. Who did you have?
It's very interesting, Rookie of the Year right now. How much do you value winning? Feels like the question to me. Because Wemby leads rookies in points, blocks, rebounds, and steals. He's also third in the entire league in blocks per game. Wemby is the sixth rookie since 1973-74 to put up a game of 30 points, 10 plus rebounds, and 6 blocks. The others, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Shaq, Hakeem, Chris Webber. All but one of those players won Rookie of the Year. And hashtag it wasn't his fault for the other one. Now, here's the other part. The Spurs are 4-21. That also matters. So how does one contribute the talent that we've seen, maybe the shooting that we haven't seen, the defense we have, with Chet doing what he's doing, being very impactful for a winning basketball team? It's not like Chet's averaging 7 and 5. He's also doing things we haven't seen many rookies do as far as blocking shots and hitting threes. He's very important for that OKC team. He's helped elevate them to where they are right now. Whether he gets all the credit or not, he's been key. I go Chet now. Chet 1, Victor Wembanyama 2. I go Derek Lively 3.
Okay.
And I swing it to Lively just because of how much they need him to do what he's done so far for this to work in Dallas. Not that Jaime has not been great. Not that you couldn't argue Jaime has had a better season. For me, I just think if Dallas didn't have Derek Lively, what would they be running? Who would they have out there? He just helps make what works work. And so I gave him the nod there.
Okay. No, that's fair. Like, I think for Jaime, I think the importance has risen just because Hero's been out. That's also just factored into him playing more, having the ball more in his hand. And as he's played well, then it's like, oh, wait, actually, we should probably just give him the ball more. He's doing good things with it. He's also shooting right now. But yeah, like I said, that can go either way. I don't think there should be any real qualms there. All rookie teams, just very quickly, Chet, Wemby, Jaime, Derek Lively. I went Brandon Miller in the 5th spot over Asar Thompson. But that's very much a coin flip right now. Second team, Asar Thompson, Keontae George, Bilal Coulibaly, Kason Wallace, Brandon Pajemski in Golden State. That would be my second team.
My first team, Chet, Victor Wembanyama, Derek Lively, Jaime Jaquez, Brandon Miller. Second team, Keontae George, Asar Thompson, Kason Wallace, Bilal Coulibaly, and Scoot Henderson.
Oh, you gave it to Scoot.
He's beginning to boot Scoot and Boogie now that the hashtag speeds are hashtag changing. I'll put it that way.
I'll allow it. Scoot and his guy, Dwap Reith, both on the injury/games played list for me. They haven't played 20. Also, no Craig Porter Jr. I would love to have him on the second team. He hasn't played enough. We'll probably play more in light of the Darius Garland injury. So next time we do an awards check-in, he may very well be on my second team, but he's been one of the most productive pick-and-roll players in the league. It's been a fun season for him. Let's close these out with 3 more. Coach of the year, who do you have?
Disgusting. This is disgusting work. I don't like that I have to do this right now because we have a whole bunch of cases that are interacting and intersecting at the same time. For instance, I have a very solid feeling Coach of the Year is probably going to be West number 1 seed or Jamal Mosley. That's no disrespect. Jamal Mosley's been fantastic. Orlando's been very good. But I do know a thing about folks. And when there's a team that is surprising, and we are not certain why that team is surprising, the light bulb goes off, and coaching appears. So I know Jamal Mosley gets some love, and it's well-deserved. Don't get me wrong. But we've got a lot of these cases of teams that we weren't thinking were going to be good being good. Like Nick Nurse and the Sixers are the 3 seed. Chris Finch and the Wolves are literally the 1 seed in the West. Dagnall's got OKC at 2. But then you have the mix as well. Joe Mazzulla and the Boston Celtics are the best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
And you also have Rick Carlisle getting Indiana to where they were offensively. You have Ty Lue working through things with the Clippers. You still have, I mean, you can make a case if you wanted to, Willie Green, if New Orleans fully turns around. So I feel like there's some hashtag standing stuff. I can tell you, I don't think people are going to give Adrian Griffin the credit.
I see.
And I feel like Ime Udoka has turned the Rockets around in a year where like 4 other people have the same case that he has. And I feel like he's just going to be hashtag down to numbers there. So respect, he's turned things around. But there's going to be a split here. I have Chris Finch 1.
Okay.
I have Joe Mazzulla 2. I had a really tough time with 3. Like Nick Nurse not being on this list had me in a headlock. A couple other coaches have it. I put Dagnall 3.
Okay.
For right now. Jamal Mosley not being on this list didn't make me feel good. Shout out to Spo and Tibbs. Some good coaching going on, man. Frank Vogel figuring it out. You know what I mean?
Boy, he's having to parse through a whole lot with the lineups. Yeah, it does get hazy. A lot of good coaching seasons happening right now. For me, number 1, I have Jamal Mosley. The 2-game skid against Boston notwithstanding. Boston absolutely got their lick back, so props to them. This team being a top 5 defense and quietly like they are inside the top 20 in offensive rating for the first time in over a decade. That's no small feat considering some of the shooting constraints that they have on the roster. And I do think, and I mentioned this during the Magic episode, I feel like this is a team that spaces well. They just don't have the shooting to punish it. As I think as the personnel gets better, I think you're going to I think what Jamal Mosley has them doing conceptually is going to pop more once they add more shooting to the room. Like I do generally like what they're doing on offense. It's just kind of tough to work with some of the shooting that they're missing. But Jamal Mosley for me is 1. I have Chris Finch 2. I have Dagnall 3. And on my short list, Joe Mazzulla's right there. Nick Nurse is there. Eric Spoelstra. I have another guy on my short list. I want to ask you about his case very quickly before we move.
Jason Kidd, huh?
No. Where are you at on Mike Brown?
Very good year, but he just won it. So unless they do hashtag 1 seed things, I just don't see him. Not that he wouldn't be deserving. I don't see it happening.
Because like I asked because like obviously De'Aaron Fox missing all that time is going to hurt just the offensive numbers, but like empowering Keegan the way that he has defensively, or challenging Keegan the way that he has defensively, and the Kings overall, like last check they were 15th in defensive rating. I was like, wait a minute, that's a big jump without great personnel. That's pretty important. In addition to the offense, when they're at full strength, still functioning at a super high level. So like wins will probably keep him out. But I just want to see where you were on this case. Did you have another thought or question?
No, I just need to expand the list. Like, literally, Philadelphia is 2nd offensive rating and 5th in defensive rating. And OKC is 7th in offensive rating and 6th in defensive rating. Like, they are coaching their tails off. That's all I got to say.
They're doing the thing. All right, last 2. We got most improved. We got 6 man. Most improved, I will give my top 3, and then I'll let you go and I'll give my list and all the good stuff. But anyway, top 3, I have Tyrese Halliburton 1, I have Tyrese Maxey 2, I have Scotty Barnes 3. Not the immediate laughter. That's crazy.
Do I know y'all or do I know y'all? Y'all done ruined this most improved ballot. Let me tell you, as soon as Nekias confirmed he wanted to do this award talk, I just typed 4 names in the most improved. I didn't even mean to put them in order. You want to know what those names were, Nekias?
What were they?
Tyrese Halliburton, Tyrese Maxey, Alperen Sengun, and Scotty Barnes. Because that's what y'all going to do. Y'all going to give it to one of them. Actually, you know what? Tyrese Halliburton, go ahead and write it in a pen. He's the most improved player.
Write it in a pen?
Yes.
Okay.
He's going to edge out Maxey unless Maxey does things, and then Maxey will be it. It'll be one of those 2. And then pick the other one.
Most improved Tyrese. Okay.
Man, my actual one, I got Kobe White.
I like it. On my short list.
I got Duncan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I once again have Desmond Bane.
Okay. Also players I have included.
That's my real list. I like the Halliburton, Maxey, Sengun, Barnes. That's what's actually going to happen. The other 3 is,
Okay, fair enough. Well, Both Jalen Johnson and Cam Thomas are out with injury/games played stuff, so they didn't make it. The short list, I had Kobe White and Alperen Sengun. On the longer list, this is more so like either more usage or improved a skill or micro skill, and it's been important, but not a big enough leap overall to get you into like my top three on the short list. Jalen Brunson continuing with the pull-up shooting, and also the defensive effort has really been sound for him. I do want to continue to commend him how hard he's fighting on defense. I had Desmond Bain. We talked about Memphis on the last pod, the on-ball chops. Duncan Robinson also had him. The shooting is back in addition to the drives being better, holding serve a little bit better defensively, which allowed him to play longer. Max Strus on the list, another playmaking bump for him. Matisse Thybulle on the longer list, which again mentioned a little bit earlier. The three-point shooting continuing to be good in addition to the defensive season that he's having. He's on my long list. Like I don't think he's going to seriously factor into this, but I want to give him a shout out. Sixth man of the year. I had fun with this one. And by fun, I mean I was in a headlock.
Let me go first then.
Okay.
Make it real easy. Tim Hardaway Jr., Bogdan Bogdanovic, Austin Reeves / Nas Reed. There you go. What you got?
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that'll do it. Well, top three for me. I had Bogdan Bogdanovic number 1. I have Al Horford 2. I have Malik Monk 3. And on my short list, Austin Reeves was going through like some of the on-off stuff with him, and the box score numbers are good. He's shooting well from 3, etc. But going through some of the on-off stuff, like Lakers technically losing his minutes, but once you dig into the stretch where he went to the bench full time, plus 57 total and 475 minutes on, plus 29 with them off. So they are winning those minutes. He's only came off the bench in 17 games so far. So that's kind of the only thing that's keeping me out the top 3 for him. Nas Reed obviously should be in the conversation. Strong argument for him to be just top 3. But Nas Reed on the short list. Tim Hardaway Jr. also on the short list for me. So we got out of there without too much yelling. I appreciate it. You'll give me your real thoughts post-pod. That's fine, though. We are a little bit late. I'll reserve I had like award-based free throws, but I'll save them for the later in the week pod. Do you have free throws?
I do.
Okay. What you got?
Just a couple quick ones. So how is hashtag draft good basketball players going?
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I would have drafted Wemby. He seems to be playing pretty well.
All right. Sweeter feeling. Dylan Brooks dagger 3 against Memphis or Joel Embiid whenever he sees a hashtag bad team.
I want to ask this in the MVP discussion because that man has shredded. Like you play who's in front of you, and if everyone could do it, everyone would do it. But like, dog, he has got a run during this recent stretch. It's got to be Dylan Brooks though. I know he loved every second of that. Also, a counter free throw actually. Giannis against the Pacers or Joel Embiid against the Wizards? Who's the MVP?
Giannis against the Pacers.
Okay.
No disrespect. Embiid's got the longevity there against the Wizards, but Giannis has literally been
got you.
You know what I mean? Dylan Brooks has attempted 20 or more shots twice this season, unless he did it in the last game I ain't checked. Do you know who he did it against?
I mean, one of these had to be against Memphis.
That is correct. Do you know the other one?
Was it against the Lakers?
It was.
How
funny is that?
Get it back in blood. I respect it.
Are you into a Zach LaVine trade to the Kings?
I get it, but like not really.
Doesn't do anything for you?
Like it would make them better. I just don't know if it makes them better in the ways that they need for them to be better. I mean, like if it's only like Harrison Barnes plus salary and then picks, then sure. Like, I mean, they're not giving up Keegan in a deal like that. So I guess it depends on what to give up. But like, I'm ultimately like, nah, I think I'll wait for either a better player or a better fit for what you're trying to do.
Okay. Whose unfiltered opinion would you pay more to hear right now? Kevin Durant or Stephen Curry?
Oh, definitely Steph. Definitely Steph.
Okay. Power rank these players as far as needing to establish them early to get the most out of them. Jonas Valanciunas, Nikola Vucevic, Yusuf Nurkic.
when you started that question, I knew JV was going to be on this list somewhere. That's amazing. JV is number one for me. And then it's Vooch, and who's the third?
Nurk.
Okay. Yeah, probably Vooch then Nurk. Probably top three.
All right.
I think Nurk, you just need to put Jokic in front of him.
I see. Power rank these defenders this year. Chris Paul, Tyrese Halliburton, Trae Young, James Harden.
Harden, Trae, Halliburton, Paul.
Wow, that's insane. More impressive, Jalen Brunson or Keegan Murray?
Man, Keegan missed 1 3 through the first. Oh, goodness gracious. And then Jalen just didn't miss in the second half. Actually, I might go Keegan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I go Keegan.
The Las Vegas Aces schedule has been released. Their first 4 games are at home. How do you feel, bud?
Yes. Yes. What a novel concept. The champions getting to start their season at home. Who would have thought?
Do you know who they start their season at home against?
I do not. Who do they start? I probably have the email.
The Phoenix Mercury. Are you ready for ring night to meet Diana Taurasi?
Thank you for listening to or watching the latest episode of the Duncan. Well, at least they at home. That's at least they're at home. I got BG versus Asia. There's some stuff there. You get some Kelsey Diana antics at some point. It might be entertaining. The Aces should win. But yeah. Wow, that just released, huh? Love getting news during the pod. That's amazing.
Yeah, I found out by Sophie Cunningham eating marshmallows.
Yeah, that seems like a great place to, all right. Thank you for listening to and or watching this episode of The Dunker Spot. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. And naturally, if you're watching us on the JJ Reddick YouTube channel and you haven't subscribed for whatever reason, please subscribe to JJ Reddick's YouTube channel. We are on the channel every Tuesday, but there's great content being posted throughout the week, so check all of that stuff out. You can follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on Twitter at SteveJones20. Join the Dunker Spot community on Twitter. We're having fun discussions in there. Join us for our online Dunker Spot watch parties. If you have League Pass, come watch some games with us. That's all you got to do. Put in the League Pass information. You're getting live analysis from us. We're breaking down plays during timeouts. We're breaking down end of game stuff if fun things happen. Great conversations happening in there. There are antics, but no shenanigans. There's a difference. It's a subtle difference, but a difference nonetheless. Either way, the link to the room should be hyperlinked in the pod description if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're checking this out audio, should be hyperlinked in your description, whatever app you're using. Click on that link, enter your information. It is free, no shenanigans. And if it's not hyperlinked for whatever reason, just copy and paste the link into your browser. Once again, it is free, no shenanigans. And with that, we will catch y'all later in the week.
Hey, great show, Nekias. Love the energy. Go ahead and send that video.